Hello chess lovers, Suren here, and in this video let's take a look at the 6th game of 1960 Botvinnik Tal World Championship match. This match, played in Moscow in the spring of 1960, raised a huge interest. All the match games were analyzed in detail in the pages of the press. Hundreds of chess fans who failed to buy an entrance ticket stayed outside the Pushkin Theater watching on a big demonstration board the games of the match. Also would like to mention that in my analysis I would also rely on comments by Mikhail Tal, which I have taken from his book Mikhail Tal's Best Games. Introducing first, the challenger for the world crown, the magician from Riga, the most fierce attacker in the world, Mikhail Tal. Tal's opponent is the undisputed world chess champion, the patriarch of Soviet chess, Mikhail Botvinnik. The time for talk is over, the time to fight is here. Botvinnik had white pieces and he opened up with c4. Tal responded with knight f6, knight f3, g6, g3, bishop g7, bishop g2. Tal castled kingside, d4, d6. We have the King's Indian defense, where white has chosen the Fianchetto variation, solid but not as ambitious as the Zemish attack or Petrosian variation. Here we have knight c3, knight d7, white castles kingside and e5. Tal had considerable success from this position, scoring 8 wins, 4 draws and 3 losses over the course of his career. That's why he goes for his tested opening. e4 by Botvinnik, we have c6 and h3. Botvinnik had lost against Smyslov with bishop e3, so it is not surprising that he chose a different line and played h3, to which Tal responded with queen b6. Tal had played queen a5 in his 3 previous games, but he would remain true to queen b6 for the rest of his career, scoring a total of 3 wins, 1 draw and 1 defeat. Already Black has created some tactical ideas. That's why in here Botvinnik played d5 and closed the center. Yes, Botvinnik is closing the center, avoiding any double-edged tactical continuations. Instead, he's hoping to outplay his opponent in a more stable position. Now comes c takes d5, c takes d5, knight c5. Black is intensifying the pressure on e4. We have knight e1, bishop d7, knight d3. We see the exchange of knights on d3 and rook c8. On this move, Tal spent 16 minutes finally deciding to organize his game on the queen side. Rook b1 by Botvinnik. He's overprotecting the pawn on b2 in order to develop his queenside bishop, and knight h5. Another interesting alternative is moving back the queen on d8 and then going for a6 b5 advancement, but in our game we have knight h5. Tal is opening up the f-pawn's path. Bishop e3 was played. We have queen b4. Tal is placing his queen on a more active square. We have queen e2. Now comes rook c4. Yes, gradually Black is intensifying the pressure, but still the players have equal chances. Rook c1, rook c8. Tal is allowing white to win this pawn on a7. But Botvinnik didn't go for it and played a more solid king h2 move. If bishop takes a7, then Black can proceed with his attack on the king side by going for f5. But in our game, as I've already mentioned, we have king h2. Now comes f5, e takes f5, bishop takes f5, and rook a1. And it was in here that Mikhail Tal made a very interesting decision, and believe it or not, but he played knight f4. Look at this epic knight sacrifice. This is one of Tal's most famous moves and one that is impossible to evaluate using traditional exclamation and question marks. Yes, the knight sacrifice looks amazing, but from a strictly technical perspective, it is a losing move. Tal spent only 7 minutes on what he would later refer to as a positional sacrifice. The move made a huge psychological effect on Botvinnik, and instead of getting a safe position in which he could exert controlled pressure, he suddenly had to deal with wild complications. According to some accounts, the spectators reacted to Tal's last move by whistling and applauding, much to Botvinnik's annoyance. Instead of knight f4, as the threat was g4, moving back the knight on f6 could have been a better move, but in our game we have this knight f4, no reverse gear. Here Botvinnik accepted the knight sacrifice and we have e takes f4, and after thinking for 10 minutes Botvinnik played bishop d2. Although the move which could have allowed white to keep the advantage was a3, if queen b3 then bishop takes a7. It's important first to play a3 and only after queen b3 play bishop takes a7, thus preventing any possible queen a5 moves. And now if rook a8 then knight b5 is coming, if rook takes c1 then rook takes c1, if bishop e5 then knight d4. And yes, white stands much better. This f3 is not dangerous because black can go for queen e5 followed by knight takes b3, but in our game after e takes f4 we have bishop d2, and in here Tal captured on b2, another very wild decision. Yes, this is a very provocative move, and this is like asking Botvinnik to play rook b1. Rook b1 is on the board, and now question arises, how should black proceed with the game? And it was in here that Tal found another insane move, and this time he played f3. This is a flash of a genius, though Tal's position is objectively lost. Koblenz remarked, one can imagine Botvinnik's state of mind. It appeared to me that red spots appeared on his face and he looked distressed. Look at this, guys. But before analyzing the lines which follow to f3, let's first take a look what if bishop takes b1. Actually, this is a better move than f3, and if rook takes b1, then black can play queen c2. And if bishop e4 only, now black can go for f3. If queen e1, then queen takes c3. And after bishop takes c3, bishop takes c3, queen e3, rook e8. Rook takes b7, rook takes e4, queen takes f3, bishop e5 check, king g2, rook f4, queen b3. Although white stands much better, but as I've already mentioned, this could have been better than going for f3. But instead, after rook a b1, as I've already mentioned, f3 is on the board, which managed to make such a strong psychological effect on Botvinnik that it was in here that Botvinnik made a mistake and captured on b2. Instead of rook takes b2, the best move was bishop takes f3, and now if bishop takes b1, then rook takes b1, and if queen c2, then bishop e4. Yes, white is managing to trap black queen, and let's see what's going to happen next. After knight takes e4, black can win the rook on b1, after which white knight is winning the pawn on d6, rook f8, queen e6 check is coming, king h8, knight f7 check, and in here of course black should give away his rook, otherwise if king g8 this can step into a smothered mate. That's why black should capture on f7, and after queen takes f7, queen f5, and the exchange of queens on f5, yes, this endgame is going to be winning for white. White has a more active position and a powerful passed pawn on d file. And now let's have a quick look one of the possible lines how white can win the game. And then the white king is coming after the pawn on h7. and then white can first play f4 and then king takes h7. Yes, this is going to be winning for white, and then the h-pawn is marching forward. But this line was a very complex one. Botvinnik failed to calculate up to the end, didn't manage to evaluate the following lines correctly, and after f3 he captured on b2, after which it's Tal who is managing to gain advantage. F takes e2 was played, and now if we have a look at the position, black has only 2 pawns against the piece, but black's position is winning. The knight on c3 is pinned, and black has a monster on e2, which is actually managing to create too many problems for white. Rook b3 was played. Now we have rook d4, bishop e1, and this time we have bishop e5 check. Yes, gradually black pieces are starting to get very active, and now we have bishop f4. The dark squared bishop is simply harassing white pieces. Right now the rook on c1 is hanging, and if you move away your rook, then this time rook takes c3 is coming, and then rook d1, and black is winning. That's why after bishop f4, Botvinnik captured on e2, after which we have rook takes c1, knight takes d4, rook takes e1 check, bishop f1, and bishop e4, knight e2, bishop e5, f4, bishop f6, rook takes b7, and in return white is winning the pawn on d5. Rook c7, of course white can't capture on a7 because of this rook takes e2 move followed by bishop d4 check. That's why after bishop takes d5 we have rook c7 and bishop takes a2. Only now white captured on a7 because the bishop is moved away from the long diagonal. Already rook takes e2 won't pass because white has this rook a8 check. That's why after rook takes a7 we have bishop c4. Yes, we have a very nasty pin and rook a8 check. Overlooking Botvinnik's powerful defensive resource, Tal played king f7, but the best move was king g7. If rook a7 check, then king h6, and yes, white's position is lost. But in our game after rook a8 check we have king f7, rook a7 check, king e6, and rook a3. Yes, this was the move which Mikhail Tal overlooked. Now if bishop takes e2, then rook e3 check is coming, and yes, this allows white to fight for the draw. We have an opposite color bishops, and this gives white a slight edge. That's why after rook a3 Tal played d5, king f2 was played, bishop h4 check, king g2, king d6, knight g3, and we have bishop takes g3. In return we have bishop takes c4, d takes c4, king takes g3. We are in the rook endgame, where this passed pawn on c-file allows black to win the game. The king is coming to support his pawn. We have rook a7, c3, rook c7, king d4. Here is what Mikhail Tal writes. In this position, the game was adjourned and white sealed his move. Arriving home, my trainer and I set up the position and were quickly convinced that black's passed pawn was irresistible. Therefore, on the next day, we didn't even eat breakfast and we waited for the sound of the referee's bell with information about white's resignation. At noon, the long-awaited bell sounded. White's sealed move had been rook d7 check, but it made no difference. White had resigned. But now let's take a look at one of the possible lines how black can win this rook endgame. If rook d7 check, then king e2. Yes, black king is managing to successfully hide behind the c-pawn, after which the rook is coming to support black king, and yes, king b2 is coming, and after king g4, here black should make this important rook b5 move. Otherwise, the immediate pawn promotion could have allowed white to draw the game, and yes, only after rook b5 black will go for a pawn promotion and black is winning. A very impressive game. The spectators were so excited that the atmosphere in the playing hall was more reminiscent of a football match. Yes, although Tal's sacrifice was inaccurate, but the psychological impact was so huge that his opponent, Mikhail Botvinnik, who had scored victories over such legends as Lasker, Capablanca and Alekhine, confronted with a surprise sacrifice, lost the right path. Tal won this game and, in spite of Botvinnik's stubborn resistance, he won the whole match. Thanks for watching. If you liked this game, give the thumbs up. Also share it with your friends. Let them know about this beauty. For more games, consider subscribing to my channel. Also press the bell button to get notified about new uploads. I will see you in my next video. Take care.